Welcome back. This is Pete from GS2. I'm a hobbyist. Started doing this sort of thing after I retired a few years ago. And every now and then I'll float through YouTube and I'll find something that's interesting. And one of the places I just seemed to happen into one day was a place called Skunky Designs. This is their website on the screen right now. And just kind of every now and then I'd float in there and I'd see something. And well, then one day she came up with something that's called a color preamp, which I found kind of amusing. It's a simple plate follower, and then it was described as adding a little bit of some of the second and fourth and maybe sixth harmonics to the signal stream. Gives you a little bit of depth. I guess you could call that distortion. And a few guitar amps I built, that is where this all happens, is in the plate follower. That's kind of where it all ends up anyway, I should say, in a push-pull scenario. So anyway, I decided to build this thing just to see what it would turn out to be, with no real understanding of if it was going to work or not. And then it doesn't show any diagram for the power supply, but I've got an adjustable one that I came up with a while ago from another website and modified it a little bit. And that way I can kind of work my way into getting this thing to work without having to trash a couple 12 AU7s because I'm over voltage, even if it's a short period of time. So I can adjust it, I can come in low and I can come up and find where the sweet spot is. Anyway, long story short, I took that diagram and then I use been doing this for a while. It's kind of maybe there. I've got circuit diagrams that I use, software. This one happens to be an AutoCAD just because I happen to use it quite a bit for my layouts. So I took that Skunky design, which it's credited to a guy named Matt from Cascade Tubes. So I'm not trying to say I did it, I didn't. So I took that and then developed it into a format that I can build more of a layout here showing where all the components are going to be, and I'll typically put this on a blackboard, tube turret, wrap design, whatever you want to call it. Stereo system, of course, would be left and right hand channels, and that's how I'll build it. It's just sort of a layout of what's going to happen in the actual box. And then from that I developed a self spreadsheet so I could come up with my materials, see what I had laying around the shop here, and then eventually build it to fit, and hopefully it'll work, and I'll try it out later. I've got a couple different ways I can analyze it. Now, there was a secondary design that came out, and if you look at this one, I just kind of want to get a little commentary on this just briefly. If you notice on the far right hand side, we've got a 10K pot. I'm assuming it's an audio taper on that one. Well, that's what I ordered. So there was another version that came out that I think the gal on Skunky did, where she put 100K on the left hand side, which you typically would see in most input sides. And I'm going to build the other one first, if that makes any sense, because I found it intriguing. I read some of the forum comments on it, and it was like, oh, no, you can't do that. You've got to put that thing on the left side close to the input. And come to find out, you can probably control your input signal from your DAC or whatever you're coming off your computer, your phone, however you're going to take this to an RCA, unbalanced signal to put it in. And then we can get the distortion or color, second, the even harmonics into the signal stream, and then vary the output going to an amplifier of some sort. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to put downstream yet. I'm certainly not going to use a a tube amp that I have. I'm probably going to put it through some Class D or Class G amp that I've got laying around that I may have retired, just because I know I retired it because it didn't have that warm glow that I typically, and I'm a tube guy, so bear with me on this one. I get that out of tubes, and depending upon the amp, I can roll it. Well, you know the whole story behind that if you've been doing this for a little bit. Again, I'm not a seasoned pro at this stuff. I found this to be an interesting project. I have a few friends who I've walked into their offices. I'm retired and come to visit and see someone who's still working, and they got the little sound system in their office. Like, God, it sounds terrible. And it's like, yeah, I really wish I could turn up the treble and the volume and the bass and it would sound good. You've got some okay speakers, you got some caps sitting on your book. It should sound a heck of a lot better than that, and it doesn't. So I said, I'm going to build something, and let's see if we can plug it in here. I had originally come up with a design that I was going to put a bypass in this. I'll show it to you right now. I was going to put a bypass up in here to be able to switch it on and off, and I thought about, I'm just not going to do that. It's probably more work than it's worth. So all that said and done, there will be following segments, and I've got most of my parts on order, if not already here. I had them on stock for other projects. I had some leftovers, and I recently got the box all chassis all cut out per my drawings and such, and I decided to put a coat of paint on it. So that's what it looks like without. That's the front side of it. That's what it's going to end up looking. Again, I'm not a real flashy builder. I do this stuff for fun. I don't do it for profit. If I do build something for somebody, I just usually charge them for parts. For me, it's all learning. I'm of the mindset that life is an education without graduation, and that being said, I'll bring it back up in the next segment, and we'll probably start with the build of the blackboard, and we'll start to get this thing ready to insert into the cabinet and the chassis, and we'll go from there. So see you next time. Okay, this is the color amp. This is the actual schematic that I got off from Skunky Designs. This is the one that's showing the 10K on the back side of it. Typically you might see it was redone, redrawn, or redesigned with a 100K pot up front here. So I'm going to actually build it as the original designer intended. I don't know which one's going to work better, but that's pretty much it. Again, showing over here is the 300 positive on the B plus side of it. I'm using a Hammond, I believe this is a spec sheet for the FX, so 372 FX. That's it. And this has probably got more in the way of outputs I need for this particular project, but it's got the 300 volts on the two red wires up here, and this is my center tap here, and that'll go over to a couple diodes over here, and this is what it looks like with the board back in the chassis. And the design I'm using is a variable power supply, and I got this off a website called Fun with Tubes, and I modified this a little bit for my own likes and whatever. Long story short, it actually uses two pots in between the capacitors here and here. They're 10K pots. I think they're a couple watts. So, and it's nice because, like I said, it can, when I'm doing a development on something or doing a first-time build or not really sure what I need to have up on my plates across, depending upon the load. This transformer I'm using, this 372DX or FX, it's probably got by far more power capability current than I'm going to need for this project. I just happen to have a couple of these laying around left over from something else I did or decided not to do, quite frankly. So this is what, and this will give me the ability, like I said, to vary that voltage on my plates. It gives you a swing, I don't know, maybe 50 volts. So, it's, then I can always adjust these these 15K resistors here. Later down the road, if I was to build this again, and I may or may not, I'll probably be able to measure what's going on between here, wherever I left the setting at this 10K pot, and the 1.5K, I said 15. I'll see what that is and determine what it would be if I was to do a hard design on that. So that's pretty much about it. I'm going to start wiring this guy up, and we'll see what goes on from there. I haven't fired it up yet to make sure everything is okay on the bottom side of it, but the only concern I have right now is that the way the design shows my outputs and inputs are here, and I'm going to be running a shielded cable up around this side here. So I've been doing my best to try to keep this clear from anything. So this high voltage line right here will actually terminate here, and I should have this open space in the chassis here. I'm just not sure how I'm going to terminate this because this is a dual gang volume pot. It's a little tight underneath, so I'll figure it out. I might have to pull the pot out and pre-wire it and then put it back in there, but that's a gold-plated problem in the big picture of the whole thing. So anyway, start wiring it up, and then we'll see what it looks like from there. Just a quick look at the chassis. I've got my AC wire feeds coming in off my IEC to a fuse, to a switch, double pole switch. Pilot light is up there. And then these, I've terminated took the wires from the power transformer that I'm not using, and I brought my 6.3 volt feeds for my heater elements out. Got those fed into my to the sockets for V1 and V2, and then I ran my high voltage DC, well it's AC right now, high voltage AC lines, which is going to eventually go to the rectifiers to turn it back into a bunch of capacitors. And so I actually had to redraw this drawing a little bit and kind of make it more, it's kind of hard to see obviously, but trying to make it more representative of what was actually being built. And I've got to modify it a little bit because I've not shown where I'm going to land beat minus on the chassis, and then where I'm going to bring down. And again, this goes back to that one author, Merlin Blenko, does a really good job of power supplies and grounding technique, which is a mistake I'd made in a few first builds I'd done. So anyway, I'm going to put the board back in here, which I realized yesterday I really did a crappy job of putting the turrets in, but nonetheless, I'm going to put it back in here and I'll take another quick look at it. Then I'm going to start wiring the thing up. Probably should have it done in a short period of time. The thing I didn't show on this drawing, which I'm going to update, is I'm going to be using shielded cables for my inputs and outputs here. And I probably need to denote that properly on the drawing, because that's a real important thing to keep those ground loops from coming in and that nasty hum and buzz and stuff that comes in there that you certainly don't want. And it's a lot of times it's a simple matter of taking the extra step to ground these things properly. And anyway, I'm going to put the board back in there, and we'll see what it looks like after that. Okay, we're going to continue on to the next segment on this power color amp build. And earlier videos I had drawn this particular, built it where I had my power supply over here. This is the adjustable one, so I got a couple pots in here, and this is more of a development thing that I use. If I decide to build this one again, I'll be able to read the values that are in here. And again, this power supply that came from a website that he was using. The designer was recommending to use this particular power supply because it actually, you could adjust it and you could fit it to 2 or 3 different projects, and it really did work well for me to adjust my B plus to where I wanted it to be. And I had originally designed this and built it so the power supply was on this side. I realized that was kind of silly because all my transformer is right beneath this thing right here, power transformer, and so I kept all my AC and on the other side. Then going through the capacitors, I came out with my B plus, which is basically here, and that just kind of fed downstream. It actually worked out better when I inverted it. So I happened to have another piece of blackboard laying around and a bunch of turrets that it was actually starting to build for an ST1 board for a Marshall amp. That's my next build. And so I've got a couple dead holes here that I was like, well, it's a development build, so I'm not really, I'm not going to sell this to anybody. This is just something I'm building for me. So anyway, that's where it's at right now. I've got to put in my my pots next, so I've got my two outputs, and then I'm going to use my shielded cable to come over to my outputs here and inputs, and put it all together and see how it performs. So all that said and done, this is what the color amp is looking like at this point. Well, finished the build of the color amp. Got everything in there, and the inputs and outputs wired in with some shielded cable, and dropped my case chassis rounds in appropriate places. And, I powered it up, and I mentioned before that I use this adjustable power supply. So I've actually got a voltmeter hooked up to I'm going to turn it on. And I'm sitting on B1 right now. And so as expected, it's going to rise a little bit above it, then come back down. And the drawing originally had said wanted 300. This is a Skunky Designs drawing, that B plus was supposed to be 300 volts. Now the original drawing I saw, it showed it at 250. On my drawings that I did to develop it, I put down 300 on and for B plus. So I'm going to probably, and I just kind of want to go through the exercise of the adjustable power supply. Is kind of convenient in the sense I can adjust these two pots here, and you do kind of one at a time. It's and I can easily get up to 300 volts on the B1 or B plus. So, and that's a nice thing to have, again, for a development scenario. Especially if I'm doing something I've never done before. I'm probably going to evaluate this thing. I'll put it up on the scope. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to evaluate it right now. But I'll put it up on the scope and see what the waveform looks like at different frequency levels. I might do a sweep on it to see what it comes out to. Then eventually I'll plug it into something I've got around here that I've got a really crappy source. Some sort of DAC or a cheesy CD player that I know doesn't have great output, and I'll see if I can flavor it up. But I'm going to probably, so once I'm going to leave this at 300 right now, and then I'll probably go through and get up to 300 again. I'll probably go through and measure different voltages for the plate and for V1 and V2 in my case, and I'll document those on my drawings just to see what they are, kind of as a point of reference. So right now it's built. I'll put a bottom on it, put some feet on it, put some labels on it, and turn it upside down and see how it performs. And so I'll probably show that in the next segment. Okay, we're powered up the color amp, put a couple labels on it. So and what I did is I just basically took a signal generator. I don't know, I think I got it at about 6 hertz right now, 6K, about 1.2 volts amplitude out. And then I just put it up at a scope, and I just kind of wanted to see how the waveform was showing up. And it, I can't see the harmonics on it. It's actually pretty clean. I was kind of surprised, well, pleasantly surprised, I should say, that there isn't any nasty ripple through it and that sort of thing. So I'm going to plug this into a DAC that I've got in a cheesy old CD player, which is pretty low quality. So anyway, that's how it turned out. I'll plug it in there and kind of give it the ear test I don't have a harmonic resonance frequency tester at present. The one I had, I bought used, and I've had it for many years, and it finally just crapped out on me. It wasn't a real good tester anyway, so it would just give me second, third, fourth harmonic levels, more of a graphics scenario. It didn't really show me and I can't modify my scope to see any kind of ripples I might see in the second or fourth order. I just don't have the capability with this equipment. So, but anyway, it does work. It seems like it's holding its own. I'll let it burn in for a little bit, and I'll give it the ear test, and probably call this project done. So anyway, here it is, the color amp, and again, nothing special, just a pretty straightforward project. I built it pretty much according to Matt at Cascade Tubes. So all that said and done, we'll call this one done.